Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe that they can do whatever the heck they want, whenever they want. And in today's episode, a woman thinks that she owns a public park, guys, and she harasses OP for being there. Guys, buckle up because you'll be shaking your heads today. And guys, I hope you enjoyed today's lineup of stories. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and as always, you can send or link your stories to this email right here. Alright, so yesterday evening, my husband and I stopped by a local bar for happy hour with some friends. We were sitting at the bar and a woman asked if the seat next to us was taken. We told her no. She sat down, gets a Bud Light, and she starts scrolling on her phone. Totally normal, nothing to see here. After a while, she calls over the bartender and she asked him to take a picture with her, as she was on a scavenger hunt and she needed a photo with a person who had dreadlocks. The guy politely declined, as he didn't want his photo taken by a stranger. Now, of course, the woman couldn't take no for an answer. The whole time she was sitting beside us, she was just glaring at the bartender, like glaring at him. She then gets up after a while and she stood at the end of the bar just watching him, with her phone in hand, still staring at him. She was standing in a way that prevented him from stepping out from behind the bar, clearly expecting him to drop everything for this once-in-a-lifetime photo op. And he politely declined again. Karen then tells him that she didn't need his face, just his hair, and that it should not be an issue. She immediately starts getting agitated that he wasn't moving fast enough and he wasn't giving her what she wanted. The bartender instead came to the opposite end of the bar and he starts chatting with people sitting on our side. He explained everything that was happening and we kept him busy with drink orders, hoping she'd get the hint. She eventually got bored and she sat back down, and we're thinking drama averted, right? But no. So the following escalating exchange occurred over the span of less than 5 minutes. Out of nowhere, the Karen screams, "Hey, dreadlocks, are you gonna take that picture or what? Let's go." The bartender says, "Hey, my name's Mike." Not really. And I've told you that I don't want to take a picture with you. At this point, Karen sighs and says, "Why is it such an issue for you? I don't even want your face, just turn the F around, I want your hair." Again, he tells her, "No, I'm not interested, please stop asking." Hearing that, Karen says, "Why are you being so difficult? Do you want me to pay you? I'll pay you, what's the issue? You'll get a tip, oh my god." At this point, the bartender hands her the tab for her untouched beer, and yes, she paid. She then screams, "There," and slams a pen on the bar and practically throws the little tray with the bill across the counter. She tells him, "I gave you a $50 tip. Now take the damn picture. I paid for it." The bartender then goes back to get the manager, and then I say out loud, "Hey, he said he doesn't want to, so leave him alone." It's at this point that Karen suddenly walks up behind us, puts one arm around my husband's shoulders, and one arm around me and says, "You guys are nerds. You know what you need? You need to go get some girlfriends. Stop being nerds. You need to get out more. Date. Don't be nerds." I tell her, "Please don't touch me." And the Karen says, "You are such a nerd. There's nothing wrong with touching you." I then pull away and release myself from her vice-like Karen grip. And I tell her, "Stop. You're making a fool out of yourself. Your behavior towards him is racist and uncalled for. Go home." The Karen replies, "Oh, my behavior is uncalled for? F all of you. I'm going home." She then picks up her receipt and the tray and she slams it onto the bar a few more times, as if she was trying to slide it towards the bartender, and then she thankfully leaves. The manager then appears and the bartender showed the manager the tab, told him what happened, and the rest of the evening was quite uneventful. Can someone please explain what the F happened here, because I don't get it. Well guys, what happened here is little Miss Karen did not get what she wanted and she threw an unnecessary tantrum. And what a horrible way to treat someone, right? But I will give her props though, guys. I'm surprised she didn't just snap a picture of the bartender and storm out at that point. Okay, so some years ago, I dated a girl. The relationship was bad. She was very controlling and abusive, and it ended up really bad and we just broke up. I kept going on with my life, and after some years, I got a decent job. It was enough to solve all my needs, have a comfortable life, and have some savings. Now the thing is, a couple of months after getting my job, my ex contacted me. She first asked me to talk, and at the time, I believed that she wanted to reconnect or something. But then she shows up with a 5-year-old child, claiming he was my son and demanding child support. Now, I didn't believe her, but the child's age did line up from when we cut contact. I then got advice from a lawyer friend of mine to try to solve this out of court. I offered to take responsibility, pay for all the costs, and being an active part in the kid's life, only after the DNA test. Now, as soon as I mentioned the DNA test, she acted offended and she demanded that I just give her the money that she deserved. She then used all the excuses she could. She even contacted my family to tell them that I was trying to avoid taking responsibility of her child. When she ran out of excuses and the DNA test was finally done, surprise, I'm not the father. She was so mad with the result, and then she cried about the money, saying it was unfair and that she deserved it. Moving on to last week, there was a little party at my parents' house. My brother, a friend, and I were talking, and my brother starts to joke about the situation with my ex. My friend and I start to joke about it too. Some of our comments were a little dark and bad, but we were far away from the rest of the people. And nobody else could hear us, at least that's what we thought. We were laughing like crazies when my sister appeared very angry and she pushed me up against the wall. It turns out she was listening in and she heard the conversation and she was really mad. She starts to yell at us about how horrible we were for mocking a poor woman. A few hours later, when the party ended, she asked me to go to the kitchen with our parents and she starts to say how awful I was for the previous situation. Apparently, my ex had been in contact with her, and she believed her version, and that was her way to have an intervention. My brother and I were like, "Are you serious?" when she started to say how I forced my ex to be a single mother, and that I have the moral obligation to help her. My dad only said that we were maybe being too cruel making jokes of her, but I wasn't responsible for the kid. My mom then surprised all of us when she said, "Even if the kid isn't yours, you're making more than enough money to support that child. You should help her." Since then, I've been receiving text. My dad and brother are on my side, saying I'm not responsible for her, but my sister's telling me how horrible I am for ruining their lives. My mom only said, "It's your decision and I respect it. I'm just very disappointed that you ended up being so selfish." Now, I'm aware that she doesn't deserve my money, and I'm not planning to give her any, but the constant harassment of my sister trying to guilt me is exhausting. Yeah, guys, if I were OP, I'd definitely tell my sister to pound sand at that point, and tell her if she cares so much for the ex, then she should shell out her own money. Like, people date all the time and they break up all the time. And it's definitely not the ex's responsibility to take care of a kid that she had with another guy that she slept with. All I can say is, how dare you? OP's ex-girlfriend, shame on you for coming at OP and even demanding child support when you know the kid isn't his. And this person comments and says, "Don't give in and start sending money. Once you do, if it becomes a regular thing, the courts can look at it as you taking on a parental role and order you to continue." One of my husband's friends lived with a woman for about 5 years. Her kids were 3 and 5 when they got together. Their dad was active in their lives, and he paid his child support. When Fred and his ex split, he was giving her money occasionally to help out because he still had feelings, and she's the one that left. She got vindictive when she found out that he was casually dating another woman. So she took him to court for child support. Even though she was getting it from the biological father, the court said that he had played a parental role, and that included financially. This happened back in 2019, and he's been trying to get it appealed since, but due to the backlog, he's finally scheduled for court next month. They've been garnishing his wages for 3 years for children that they are well aware are not his, but deemed he had risen their standards of living and he was obligated to maintain that. So yeah, guys, I had no clue whatsoever that this could happen. And if you guys did not know, now you know. So a little context. There was a 10.5-year age gap between me and my little sister. When I was a teen, I would often take her to the local park to give my mom a break or give her some time to get some housework done, etc. At the time the story happened, I was 15 years old. It was Wimbledon season, so my mom asked me to take my sister to the park for a few hours so she could watch it in peace. She gave me some money so we could get some fish and chips in town and some ice cream at the park. So we got some fish and chips and then went to the beach for a bit to buy my mom some extra time. And then we headed to the park. As we approached the park gate, this Karen was dragging along her child and glared at me saying, "You should be ashamed." Hearing that, I looked around, but there was nobody else she could have been talking to. I was dumbfounded. I blankly pointed to myself as if to affirm she was talking to me. She then says to me, "Girls these days are such sluts. Who knocked you up? Or let me guess, you don't know." I just stared at her blankly for a minute and I said, lady, she's my little sister." The Karen then rolls her eyes and leered at me saying, "Yeah, we had little sisters in my day too." Now at this point I tried walking away because I was uncomfortable and just wanted out of the situation. And she screams, "Hey, don't you dare go into the park. You'll spread your filthy diseases all over that park. I don't want my son catching your diseases." I just ignored her and walked into the park. Surely she'd leave me alone when I was surrounded by kids and parents, right? But I was wrong. The woman follows me around the park, demanding that I just leave. She demanded that I leave a public area. And the more I ignored her, the madder she got, and she kept repeating over and over, "Get out! Get out! You're not allowed here." At this point, a few parents noticed. One mom, who was my mom's friend, rushed over just as the woman grabs my arm and yanked at me. She screams at the Karen asking, "Why are you grabbing a child? Let her go. Who are you?" To which Karen says, "Mind your effing business." My mom's friend then screams, "Let her go or I'm calling the police." The woman let me go, but she turned her anger towards my mom's friend, shouting that she was just making the park safe for her child and that girls like me should not be here because I might spread some nasty, filthy disease all over the place. She never specified what disease, but I'm guessing she meant an STI or something. At this point, more parents started to come over to see what's going on. Seeing she was outnumbered, the Karen eventually left, dragging her child behind her, screaming obscenities at us as she slinked away. When I told my mom what happened, she was furious. She packed us all into the car and drove us around town to look for the woman. But we didn't spot her. Thankfully, I never saw the woman again. Yeah guys, even if OP's little sister happened to be her child, that's still not a good reason to harass a complete stranger. Like, keep that stuff to yourself, Karen. Like, it's funny how she was screaming at others to mind their business when she needed to mind her business. And guys, I love the fact that OP's mom goes full mama bear mode. And she was like, "That's it, everybody get in the car. We gotta find this woman so I can beat her." At least I think. She might have just wanted to talk, I don't know. Alright, so I should give a little bit of backstory first. My parents divorced when I was 10 because my dad found out she was cheating when she told him my brother and sister, who were 7 and 8 at the time, weren't his. When he asked her why she cheated, she said that she found a man who was able to give her the high life, unlike my dad, who was a farmer trying his best to maintain a family while managing my grandfather's farm. When discussing custody over me in court, my mom said she wanted nothing to do with me, and she left my dad with full custody while she took my brother and sister with her, and then she married her side piece after everything was finalized. Of course, with the rise of social media, she only includes me in family photos to make herself look good, even though she tosses me to the side afterwards. I don't even have a relationship with my siblings because they look down on me for classist and petty reasons. Now with that out of the way, on with the show. It was about 7:30 in the morning, and I was feeding cattle and I was having a jam session when my dad comes out to the feedlot to tell me that my mom was here to see me. So I hop off the tractor and go walking around the farmyard until I spot a brand new Porsche with my mom sitting in the driver's seat. I walk up to her car and very politely say hello to her before she wrinkles her nose and looks at me in disgust and says, "Don't you have anything better to wear besides those filthy rags? And take that wad of chewing tobacco out of your mouth. Honestly, I'm embarrassed that you're my son looking like that." I tell her, these are work clothes and I was working. What do you want? She then looks me up and down with a disgusted look again before taking a deep breath and saying, "I need to ask a favor of you. It's important." Now, the only thought going through my head was she's part of a cult and she needs me to be a blood sacrifice at tonight's meeting. I ask her, "Well, what is it?" She then says to me, "Your sister's gonna be graduating this year, and I think it's only fair that you gave her the money that your grandfather left, since you obviously don't need it." My grandpa had put aside $25,000 for each grandchild that once they turn 18, they can use for college, or buying a car, or whatever. The only catch was you needed to either graduate high school or obtain a GED. Now, why would she be wanting this money, you ask? Well, I'll tell ya. She had asked my grandpa after the divorce that not only should her kids, my brother and sister, still get the money, but also that he needed to beef it up a few $1,000s because it wasn't enough. So my grandpa, out of spite, took the money that was originally meant for them, and he put it all in mine, and told her only his actual grandkids get the money. A few years later, when he passed away, my dad had added some of his inheritance to it, so when I graduated, I ended up with around $93,000. I've since spent $27,000 out of it on a tractor, and put the rest in savings, where I add on to it every paycheck. I say to my mom, why would I give her any of my money? She doesn't even speak to me anymore. My mom says, listen, you're not going to college. She can use that money. I tell her that money was left for me to use on whatever I wish. Besides, if she wants it, she needs to ask me herself, instead of you telling me to do so. My mom says she doesn't need to ask you. In fact, I shouldn't be asking you either. But since your grandfather was an a-hole, and you weren't caring enough to hand it over before, here I am. I ask her, aren't you guys paying for her college? Why should I give her money? My mom tells me she needs fun money, money to spend. I tell her then give her spending money too. My mom then says, why won't you do this for her? I tell her I won't. And since when has something been too expensive for you? Just make your side piece work harder like you did in the past when you wanted something. Hearing that, my mom's shocked and says, I'm your mother. How dare you speak to me like that? You should be thankful I gave birth to you. Just give me something. And that's when an idea came to my mind. I falsely apologized to her and said she was right, that I should give her something. I told her that I'm gonna run to my truck to grab my checkbook, and off I went. Once I was at my truck, I proceeded to dig through the cup holders for pennies. Every little bit helps, right? Once I've gathered about 20 or so pennies, I walk over and tell her to hold her hand out, and drop the pennies in them with a smile. I then say, you said a little bit could help a lot, didn't you? So I thought you could have that. She says to me, that's not what I meant. A few thousand is what I had in mind. She then throws the pennies at me and she starts blaring the horn, screaming at the top of her lungs that I give her what she asked for. I'm just standing there watching her go on as she's demanding money and calling me everything under the sun. And that's when my dad shouts, shut the F up. Taking this moment, I look back at her and say, you never said thank you. My mom swears at me and she says that I'll give my little sister what she deserves. And I tell her, when you do a face reveal, I will. She then tells me to go F myself and she speeds off, and that was the end of it. Yeah, all kinds of entitlement from OP's mom. Let me get this straight. So she comes and demands OP give her daughter thousands of dollars. The daughter that she had when she cheated on OP's dad with, that's totally unrelated to Grandpa. And when OP said no, she proceeded to swear at him, throws a tantrum, saying that her kids are owed that money. The kids that OP barely knows. Yeah, at that point, I'd say the 20 pennies that OP gave her was a little bit too much. That woman deserves absolutely nothing. On this day, I was flying home from San Diego, where I was stationed as a captain in the Marine Corps. I had an aisle seat, and I was settled in when a Karen comes loudly huffing down the aisle. I briefly became religious, begging the Almighty to not have her placed next to me. But I must have committed more sin than I realized, as she starts eyeing my row with utter disdain. Despite these vibes, I politely stand up and asked her if I could help her with her bag. With contempt oozing from every word, she replied that if she needed help, she would have asked for it. Well, that unpleasantness out of the way, I braced for more of the same, and I wasn't disappointed. Without an ounce of graciousness, she proceeded to direct, not ask me, to swap seats with her because she was allegedly claustrophobic, to which I politely declined. Reflexively, with her Medusa-like stare, she then glares at me and asked if I was in the service. I replied I was. To which then the Karen goes on a diatribe about how her nephew had just graduated from the Naval Academy, and that she'll report me to him, and he might have to ruin my career. She further said the consequences of my refusal would cost me free college, and the chance to make something of myself. I politely and calmly explained that I was a college graduate and an officer of the Naval Service, senior grade, to her blessed nephew. I further explained how unethical and illegal it would be to use one's position and office to compel someone to move on a civilian flight. Unfazed, Karen goes on to say that she knew her nephew was higher than me because he went to the Naval Academy. At that point, I just hand her a business card and asked her to please give it to her nephew and have him contact me. A flight attendant, having overheard most of the exchange, asked the Karen if there were any troubles she needed to resolve. With a scowl, she goes back to work on her crossword book. The rest of the flight was uneventful, aside from her occasionally muttering under her breath and performing deep breathing exercises to manage her claustrophobia. I did see her fill out a survey card, giving all zeros without reading the questions. I never heard from the nephew. Hopefully he set her straight. Yeah, either that or he's not even in the Naval Academy. And guys, you'd think that if someone was claustrophobic on an airplane and they needed an aisle seat, that they would book an aisle seat. But knowing Karen, she probably didn't want to pay extra to choose a specific seat, and she thought that bullying someone out of theirs is much easier. And that, my friends, is r/entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. It's an r/petty revenge, where OP's Karen neighbor won't stop destroying her land, and she learns a very expensive lesson after cutting down 23 of OP's trees. It's such a funny story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.